So I'm sure you've heard about people reinventing themselves, but did you ever wonder how it was actually done? Libbi Gorr is a multi-award-winning radio and TV broadcaster who, as the satirical character Elle McFeast, became the first woman in Australia to helm her own national nighttime variety show, Elle McFeast Live. When a clearly drunk, notorious hitman by the name of Chopper Read staggered on stage to be interviewed during her first episode and then proceeded to laugh while joking about killing a man by putting him in a cement mixer, it's fair to say the shit hit the fan. The absolute rocket that Elle McFeast was riding into the heights of career success took a very unexpected turn downwards. Her show, which had been commissioned for 32 episodes, ran only for 16, and well before social media cancel culture had even been thought of, the manufactured media outrage around the moment essentially ended Elle McFeast and sent Libbi to seek cover where she put things back together to re-emerge anew. What's interesting about this story is that Libbi's astonishing rise to power was unable to compete with the complete stacks on, and the moment was enough to change the course of her career. She retreated, she reinvented, she resurrected. Libbi Gorr is a very, very important and powerful voice in Australia. And while 48-year-old me was incredibly happy to have her on the show today, 14-year-old me is even happier. But more about that as we chat with Libbi Gorr. Libbi, I'm just so happy that I can speak to you today. We are conversing over the internet right now, but only a few short. The day before my birthday, actually, I'm coming to converse. Yeah, it's the day before my birthday, my 49th birthday.
Oh wow!
We are going to be conversing with each other in front of the Malthouse Theatre in the South Bank of Melbourne. One, so I have a chance to actually, be in the same space as you for the first time since I think 1985.
Oh my God!
Or six. And secondly, to shamelessly plug my show, which is running at the Malthouse starting on the 2 days later. So I'm grateful that we can speak today.
So what's really interesting is that if your birthday is on March the 29th,
yeah.
My birthday is on March the 24th, so we're both Aries. And
well,
we're both going to have a fabulous year. Because I'm sure
all of our ex-partners could all get together and have a convention and go, oh, you fuck, yes, I know, right?
It's true. We're impulsive. We're all sorts of things, but it's our special year. It's our emerald year. And I follow Susan Miller Astrology Zone. Do you follow Susan Miller Astrology Zone?
The only astrology that I'm into is, involves gigantic radio telescopes. But
okay.
It has come into my life before. There was a moment where I dabbled with Kabbalah, so astrology has come into my life.
Mysticism. So this is the wonderful thing about Susan Miller Astrology Zone is she's got trillions of followers all over the world, and she's always late. And whenever she's late in posting, like she's 2 or 3 days late every month, and it's always something terrible's happened, like her eyeballs exploded or.
Excellent.
There's always some reason why she's late. And everybody always says, oh, come on, Susan, like if you can see the future in the stars, you surely should have been able to see the month was going to end. Anyway, but I look forward to every new month because I get to check in with Susan Miller Astrology Zone. But so, yes, it's our birthday month and I'm here for the same reason. Apart from I get the chance to talk with you the other way around, I get to shamelessly promote. I've got 2 shows left at the Malthouse called Bold Conversations, B-O-L-D, not bald, as in B-A-L-D, B-O-L-D. And
yeah, right.
You're on the one that is Young People Shit Me. That's the name of that one. The people at the Malthouse are young people, and they insisted that I change the title to Young People Shit Me, Old People Shit Me, because apparently old people shit them. I have done that because I'm accommodating, but really young people just shit me. And the one before that, March 16, because there are only 2 left, is called My Favourite Failure, because I'm trying to do some sort of sustainability march on personal experiences, turning them around into something positive, which I know sounds shamelessly just promotional, and I'm happy to go deep and meaningful if you want.
No. Look,
It's
Because I aim today. I'm trying. Like, here's the thing. I've got my foot in two boats. Like I've got one foot on the Fair Star, the fun ship of television. Like the great giant ocean liner of prime time reality that I've been, has been sailing me and my mortgage across the seas for 20 something years.
You're
the
so
other foot
lucky.
is my other foot's in a fucking dinghy because the podcast in there and this live show I'm doing is in there and a few other things are in there.
There is something to be said for meaningful work. And there's also something to be said for backing yourself in, and still having your passion projects going. To recalibrate in your 50s, and you're not there yet, but it's a very interesting thing to do, And I think we're the first generation of people, because there are 6 generations of us living cheek to jowl. You've got the silent generation, which is my parents' generation, who, let me tell you, they're not silent at all. Then you've got those boomers that won't go away. Then you've got X's, me, like you. But they never acknowledge us. They don't even say that. They just go, yeah, boomers, millennials, and they forget us.
Yeah.
Then there's the millennials. Then you've got Zs, and then you've got your kids. They're called Alpha. Your kids
Excellent.
are Alpha. Mine is Z. Anyway, so there are 6 generations, cheek to jowl, trying to find some meaning. And I reckon we're the first ones in history, our age, who have got an opportunity to start again, because Mr. Howard said that we had to work till we were at least 70. And let's face it, who wants not to? I love it. I love it.
Mr. Howard might have been saying that because he was worried that, the age of entitlement would mean that people would just expect a pension and go. But I distinctly remember as a kid, mates' dads retiring at 55.
I know.
50 fucking 5
and
getting a fat fucking government pension and just being like, well, I guess I'm going fishing.
Yep.
And that's just what they did. Famously, one of the greatest surfers of all time, Mark Richards, at 27, at the top of his game, retired because he's like, it just didn't make sense to be so old surfing. Kelly Slater's still in the tour. He's like 3 years older than me. He's like in his early 50s. It's kind of interesting. But also, I don't think like Mr. Howard was, I want to keep working so I can put food on the table. It's like, I don't want to stop because I honestly don't know what I would do if I didn't do this. I would live a very lonely life because I would drive everyone around me fucking away because I would just be insufferable if I didn't have something to do.
Well, you've always made your own work though, right? Hey, I just want to know, do you like being a reality star? Like, I'd love to be a reality star. Not on maths. I don't think I'd like that.
Honestly,
I don't think I'd be very good at that.
I've never watched an actual broadcast frame of that. I only see it when it goes by on Gogglebox every few weeks.
Gogglebox.
I've never watched it. I know about 30 people that work on it. Reality TV is really interesting. You get these fascinating people that want to be a part of it and these extraordinary scenarios that happen, that are constructed to give you the exposition for what the show is, whether it be dating someone or building a house or cooking a thing or whatever. And then every now and again, you get these unbelievable moments that justify its existence. We had one maybe 2 weeks ago on a Sunday night. The Tribal Council of Survivor was possibly the greatest 10 minutes of Australian television I think I've ever seen.
Why is that? What happened? See, I don't watch the stuff. What happened?
Oh my God, Survivor's probably the greatest greatest non-scripted reality format ever made. It is the reason that reality television exists, and there's no way you could ever write it. The short version is there's a bloke called George. By the time we release this, he may have left. But as far as I know, he's still there, though I did miss an episode the other night. George is the kind of guy that he's walking past 2 people in a park playing chess. Without breaking step, he'll go, black wins in 6, and just keep walking. Like he's that kind of guy, but with people. He's a backbencher party whip for New South Wales Labor. I don't think he's still in the party anymore, but knows how people move and is like Jane Austen game theory. Neo in the Matrix can see exactly what to say to who. So in 7 moves, someone will say something to somebody else. He's amazing and just dismantled. It was like him living his high school bully destruction dreams. Dismantled this boy, this poor boy, just dismantled him with his own bluster and took him to pieces and just took his very sense of self and identity just apart in front of him. And this kid, he's like he's 26, probably 25, just took him to pieces and just left him there like stunned. It was unbelievable.
Verbally dismantled him.
But he had put so many things in place in the days leading up to it that it was so well executed and so well planned.
Right.
The guy had nowhere to go. And the stakes were so high, and it was just amazing. And so every now and again you get that, and then sometimes you get these reality shows that is like, tonight on Australia's best chainsaw cupcake races, and it's just the same. You could watch it 5 times, same episode 5 times, not realise you hadn't seen it 4 times before. But that's what reality TV is. It's cheaper to make than scripted, and occasionally you get these colossal moments. I love being a part of it. I'm involved in. I don't think Bondi Rescue is exactly reality. It's more observational documentary, but I'm involved in, this particular one, the Bachelor franchise, has allowed us to kind of Trojan horse these really interesting depictions of what it is to be a young single person in Australia. People who are your age and my age and maybe a little bit younger or certainly your age, my age and older, just can't conceive of a 28-year-old man or woman that's never had a long-term girlfriend or boyfriend.
No.
They haven't had to, because sex is transactional. They swipe to get it. And so they don't need the relationship skills. They don't need the relationship skills or all of that kind of like precursor, trying not to be a punish to be around and trying to be a better person and try to let go of all the bullshit you carried in high school so as to allow enough contact hours to get this person to either let you inside of them or go, yeah, I'll let you inside of me. Like, that took work. But that work largely doesn't have to happen in many ways. And so you meet these people who are in their late 20s, early 30s who literally have never had never introduced their parents to a woman.
So the sex thing is separate to the relationship. The sex thing
it's completely apart.
Oh my God. Gee, that would have been very liberating, because for me, when I was growing up, it was you always had to be in love with someone, and it needed to be a marriage prospect. Like if it wasn't,
right,
you would feel incredibly guilty. But that might have been the Jewish thing as well.
Yeah, I think your parents watched too much Yentl, to be honest. I think I was like
a little bit Fiddler on the Roof. But still, I remember once I had this boyfriend and Mum and Dad were away. It was actually one of my best friend's older brothers. And we were together and we saw the headlights in the driveway of Mum and Dad coming home, and we'd been imbibing as well. And he decided that the most important thing to do was to hide the dope. And I was like, no, just put your clothes on. If you want to get out of here alive, put your clothes on. But, it was funny. Sex was not just for fun. And what I say to my kids is now I try and give them a different messaging to what we got, because it meant that you had to think you were in love with people you were just attracted to. So you spent an awful lot of time, justifying being with someone because you actually just fancied them.
And there certainly wasn't like any idea of sex for pleasure.
No.
Well,
I mean,
like
I knew I had to get something out of it, but it wasn't just wasn't just for me. It had to have a relationship in there.
No, you're all kinds of language. You're a slut, you're a whore, you're a player, you're all kinds of, to have just simple transactional sex for pleasure and say, hey, thanks, that was great. Goodbye, don't worry, I won't call you.
Is that what they do? Is that what they do?
This happens, yes.
Just young people or people our age? Or
I don't look. I have before I was married. The first time there was some years of orbiting in this universe, and it was fun. It's consensual.
But did people think that that you liked them? Like, was that part of it? Or was it just? I think. You had to pretend you liked them.
Well, it was at the time, bear in mind, Libby, I was reading the Motley Crue book, The Dirt, like it was an instruction manual, not a cautionary tale. So the fact that I was on the road and literally saying, I'm on a plane tomorrow, I think may have helped set parameters.
Right. So the interesting thing is the whole Elle McFeast thing, what was weird about that was that a little birdie told me that maybe you might have had a thing Maybe you were a 16-year-old boy watching me on the television when I was 25,
Me?
20. Yeah.
No. Okay, so bear in mind, like, people are listening to your voice, they might hear you sound familiar. Like, you're Libbi Gorr, but for many years, people saw you on television essentially in a character which was a version of you, Elle McFeast, which is a fantastic play on the super duper model at the time. My first, I guess, awareness of who you were was as Libbi Gorr.
Where?
At some weird little park in Brisbane, Albert Park, I think it was.
The bagels at Expo.
You were, maybe that was it. Yeah, I think it was 14. And you were on stage as part of a singing group.
Yeah, the hot bagels.
I don't remember how many ladies there were. There was 4 of you. There was lots of harmony. It was hilarity. It was very funny. And I remember, like, there's all these ladies on stage, but there was just something about you particularly that I couldn't look away from. And no, but look, bear in mind, like, now, I'm not to say that I wasn't enamored by you. Certainly, when Elle McFeast was on the screen, it was like, oh, there she is, and similar, was there. But I was 14 years old, and there was more testosterone than a bull shark at that point in time. So there was a lot. There was a lot happening, but on my radar, just like, boom, there was just something about you. I remember being 14, and I think you were like my first proper actual teenage in-person crush, because you could look at pictures or whatever and go, oh. But I didn't know where women like that existed in Brisbane. I certainly wasn't able to talk to them. Hi, how are you? Like, it just wasn't going to work. But I remember you.
You thought I was gorgeous. You wanted to.
You still are. Come on now. But I remember that.
It's funny.
I remember talking to you afterwards, and I think because my dad had taken me to the gig. How did you get from being a part of that to propelling up into the kind of higher altitudes of that brought you to greater public attention on the telly?
What happened was, when I got to uni, I surprised everybody and myself and did spectacularly well, and got into Melbourne University Law, which was like, the highest thing that you could possibly get into.
Yeah. And
through that university, did you just ask me how that happened? So what happened was I auditioned for the law review at the university, because I was just so overwhelmed to be there. And, I'd gone to this MLC, this all-girls school, and it was very gung-ho. Like, Nicola Roxon went to MLC. She was the year below me, Kate Blanchett. There was something in the water at MLC in the 80s, and all the girls we thought we could do it all, and we could have it all, and we could be it all and whatever. But when I got to university, in particular, Melbourne University, Blue Ribbon Law School, I realised that some of the boys who'd gone to those elite private boys' schools had not got the same email. So I go in there thinking, I'm entitled. And once I got in there, suddenly I was in this race that I just couldn't compete. It was about beauty, it was about, wealthy families. It was about a whole heap of stuff that, remembering it was free education still then, I was a recipient of that, the whole Gotham thing, and the last of that. And so I auditioned for the law review because I just needed to somehow make some friends. And the first year I was just so intimidated I had to drop out, because there were all these Xavier boys from the Catholic boys' school who were in charge, and they were all so cool, and the girls were all so pretty and ponytailed. And I still felt like I was this dumpy, really insecure about my looks, because I was sort of woggy and everybody else was blonde and ponytailed. And, that whole woggy kind of thing that you feel when you don't quite fit in. And anyway, so I dropped out the first year. The second year, there was another girl who also auditioned who I thought was chubbier than me. She had a pink fluffy jumper. She was hilarious. And whilst I was wanting to go out the back door and not audition, I thought, if she can do it, I can do it. That was Magda. And that whole... So I found myself in the milieu of Magda, Rob Sitch, Tom Gleisner, who else was in there? There was, Santo, the whole thing. And whilst I didn't fit into the working dog model, because I wasn't really a character actor, I was more a satirist, I certainly got my confidence up from being around those people. Somewhere through there, the hot bagels were looking, they already existed.
Yeah.
They'd had a row and two people had left. So they were looking for two new members, a piano player and the third singer, because there were two sisters, Anna and Lena Fishman. And they auditioned me and gave me the part because I had a very big bottom. And they wanted a sort of a, lumpen-thighed Jewish girl to sing about being Andrew's sisters on crack songs about growing up in Balaclava and being in the bagel belt. Now, the interesting thing was that Janine, who was the piano player, was Italian, so she didn't have that experience. And my Jewish experience was very Anglican because I'd been to an Anglican girls' school, Methodist senior school. So I sort of was Jewish with a Methodist rising and a moon in the Church of England. I'm very old school Melbourne. I'm very old school Melbourne. So you asked me how that happened. That's how that happened. I was the last bagel to join.
Yeah.
And I was just lucky because that was sort of 1986, and that's when the whole groundswell of the comedy festival, 1986, 1987, the bagels were given the job of opening for Phyllis Diller at the very first comedy festival. Like, I've forgotten this stuff. And people have told me, I realise now how lucky I was to be part of that whole history. But I would have only been 22, 23, 24, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's how it happened.
Just to stop for a sec, because I've
I've
been doing the show.
Sorry.
No. Just occasionally there's little bits and pieces that I'm like, that deserves further exploration. Because during this show, over the last 10 years or so, I've been a part of something similar twice. I was part of the Brisbane band scene in the 90s, which just had something. And it was Regurgitated, Powderfinger, etc. That had come up. The go-betweens had been about 8 years beforehand, and there was just something that happened about not necessarily the people that were on stage, but also many people that were surrounding them just went and just kind of exploded out of that. And it happened again with Channel V on the music television. I was just a part of this. Just
cohort.
Occasionally a cohort of people gets in the right combination with the right time in history, with the right amount of opportunity, and just unbelievable things happen. What do you remember that was, you've been in the entertainment industry for long enough now, when you look and you see, Tom and Santo and Rob and, Magda, was there something about that particular group of people that have something that other people didn't have?
Well, a free tertiary education. That was one.
God
so
damn
no
it.
head.
Well, so fucking between that and the NBN, like fucking hell. Where we could be.
I mean, people
where
got
we could
educated
be.
beyond their class and had visions and dreams beyond what their family programming was,
Yeah.
So that was the first thing. It threw a whole bunch of people together who were driven, not entitled. And out of that comes something, an energy, doesn't it? But the system was already there. The system was already there in terms of law reviews and things, because that's where Max Gillies and Rod Quantock and everything, like certain institutions, Barry Humphries, they all went.
Chaser up here in Sydney.
Yeah,
Chaser
Sydney
all came out of there. All came out of Sydney Uni. Yeah, so all like one particular year got together.
That's what the beauty of being of the extracurricular activity at university can do, because sometimes it's your passions that become your path.
Yeah.
As distinct from what you study. Although the law degree's obviously been very handy, because you know how far you can go.
Did you finish it?
Yeah, of course I did.
Amazing. That's incredible.
I did finish it. My dad gave me an earring at the beginning of the year that I did my article clerks. He because I put it off my article clerkship, which is your professional year, for 2 years, whilst I toured with the Bagels. And Dad said, here's a diamond stud, and when you've finished your articles, I'll give you the other one.
Nice. That's
and
good, Dad. Good parenting.
Do you really think I'm that shallow? And
I said, yes.
My article. But I was doing Elle McFeast at the same time.
Yeah.
So, you got to do this shit when you're young.
Yeah, amazing. When when you're out and you're starting to become Elle McFeast, which was there was a brand in Australia called Sports Girl before there was fast fashion, before you could buy clothes and have them at your front door by 11 and return by 5 because they didn't fit. It's amazing, right? Courier, we should be in the courier game, Libbi. Honestly, we should be.
I know, parcels.
We're on the wrong gig. Yeah. There was this band called Sports Girl, and you were the voiceover artist, and
Correct.
You were told we need you to sound like Elle McPherson, who was one of the pictures that I was looking at. There probably weren't any other people in the room when I was looking at these pictures. I'm not going to lie. Libbi, I'm not going to lie. But you were told to sound, do your best, sound like this person. And so you kind of created this this person.
And I said, how do you sound hungry?
She's fucking, I bet you
That
were
was
looking
the
at her
genesis
now.
of the Elle McFeast.
Gosh, she would have.
Because, like, I am not the first woman to talk about how insecure about her body and her looks, particularly from the 70s and 80s. Like, if you were dark and had curly hair and big thighs and whatever, you did not fit into that Elle McPherson cover of Sports Illustrated paradigm. You just didn't. So what do you do with that when you're told that you're entitled to have it all and you should be valued on your brain and not your looks? And also in the 90s, there was this dichotomy that you couldn't actually be both, like beautiful and smart, like that. It was still weird.
Pick a lane. Yeah. Come on, we don't know what to do with you. What are you doing on this show? You're supposed to be on that show.
Oh, no.
Why are you wearing so many clothes? What are you doing with this mouth thing? What's that sound coming out of your face? Talking.
Yeah, exactly. So it was interesting seeing how one channels one's insecurities or flaws into creativity. And I think probably the creativity saved me.
Yeah.
Because it was hard. Being different's hard. So unless you can carve your own path and celebrate your differences and celebrate your flaws, you constantly, I just didn't want to stay like that. I needed to do something with that.
You remember how you remember how you felt when you looked at Elle McPherson on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
You don't, there's misery in comparison.
Yeah.
And, I really feel our eldest, she's 19. She sees that perfection about every 12 seconds when she's on her phone.
Oh, right. Yeah,
And that comparison, that smash in the face of you're not this, you're not that. I mean, don't get me wrong. She's stunning.
Gorgeous.
She's 6'1". She's amazing. She's Pilates instructor. She's fucking incredible, right?
Yeah.
But we all have a thing. We all have there's not enough of this or not enough of that. Like even like I try to stay away from Instagram as much as I can because the algorithm knows me. And every now and again, it's like, here's a bloke around your age. He doesn't have a gut. Here's a bloke around your age. He's got a six pack. Here's a bloke around your age. He's like got a fucking boat, I'm just like 10 minutes later, I'm like, I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah.
It's not real, but it's devastating. I think we're sorry, that was a bit of an aside. Like we're not really equipped to deal with that, though.
If you look back at photos of yourself at 16, you see, I think that perhaps, I don't know about 16-year-old boys, but if 16-year-old girls knew how powerful they were at 16, they would be completely and utterly dangerous, more dangerous than they are. So maybe anthropologically, that's why we're beset with insecurities and stuff like that at that particular age. Because if you knew how absolutely gorgeous and powerful you are, you'd be unstoppable.
I wouldn't say it's anthropologically. I'd say it's the insecurity of men realizing they will lose all power to that power. It's got nothing to do with anthropology or evolution. I think it's got all to do with power. Oh, absolutely. Oh, true.
But girls don't see they have the power. See, I'm watching this with my son who's 17.
Yeah.
If I'd had a son before I'd been a teenage girl, I would have understood the male psyche so much more and possibly would have been much happier.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If I'd known how sweet and just think differently to girls. They just don't agonise and overthink. You boys are very straightforward at that particular age. I mean, I'm sure that they've got their own insecurities and this and that and the other, but not like we did it as girls. I cannot see that amidst my son and his friends.
No.
They just enjoy life.
They do.
Is that true?
I only remember going to a school at the age of 16, 17. It was probably not dissimilar to the one you mentioned down in Melbourne. It was all boys. And the view of the world that I was given, the view of the world that I osmosed, and particularly the view of women that I osmosed, turned out to be very different than the actual world I then went into as an adult, and the way that I spoke to the women that I would meet now in my working life was a very, very, very rude awakening to me that, actually I can't treat people or speak to people like that. Yeah. Thankfully, I know better, so now I know better, and now I do better, but I remember coming out going, why is everyone so angry at me all the time? This is how all my friends talk.
You're at a single-sex boys' school. See, we went co-ed with our kids because it's a co-ed world, right? And it's a different time, but they're just, in many respects, the boys are very simple. Like they want to kiss a girl, so they kiss a girl. And then they don't think any more of it.
You grew up in Melbourne, and I kind of adjacently know this through one of my dear mates who also, I think he even went to one of those schools. He's like very Jewish guy. You wouldn't know it.
I didn't go to Jewish schools.
No, but neither did he.
Oh, right.
And so he had a kind of similar vibe, but the kind of ingrained kind of Melbourne Jewish kind of community there I think it feels a little more kind of powerful than the one here in Sydney, which is mostly in the east and a bit north of where we are right now. But it's very much a thing, and you can be in it and live most of your life without getting out of it, and everything can mean everything within it, and then you take a tram for 4 extra stops and no one gives 2 shits what you did or said or whatever. Did you find yourself kind of being trapped a bit by that, or did you find yourself rebelling against it?
No, it wasn't. I've always had a dual passport. So
what are you doing Friday? Coming to the movies with you. Was that, or was it no, I can't do anything?
No. I've always had a dual passport.
Right.
And I am culturally, it's my culture.
Yeah.
As distinct from my religion. Like I am cultural. Like you can't help that. And that's about valuing food and connections but I live a very integrated life.
Yeah, I guess people sometimes ask me about that. They make they see my name and clearly assume things. I'm like, it would be
a bit hard not to presume something with Osher.
This is true. And Ginsberg, and I say, it would take a conversion that I don't think I can actually get to as far as the way I feel about things physiologically, philosophically, and also a form of surgery that at this point in my life I really don't want to go through. So I don't really.
How did that happen that you got this far in life without that?
Because it was my father's father.
Ah.
Yes.
But do you feel? Oh, we don't have to go down here.
No. This is what I want to get to. This is what I want to get to because I've spent a fair amount of time in the Middle East, and I've certainly culturally been around Jewish communities that are way more integrated with the greater society at large, and culturally, not as from a theological perspective, culturally, the inbuilt way of looking after each other, the inbuilt way of, and I know we always get together on Fridays, the inbuilt way of, I do give to charity, that's just the thing that I do. That sort of thing, for me, serves a society and a greater community in an extraordinary way that I think the larger, secular Australian, society, misses. And
it's
trying to put those.
That. My kids play soccer, and it's the beautiful game. Everyone plays soccer, and my kids are good at it. And in their team, both of them, there are Muslim kids, there are Greek kids, there are Italian kids, there are Asian kids, there are kids from everywhere, and there are kids from Celtic backgrounds. Like there's a Mustafa and there's a Michael and there's a
excellent.
There's a Liao and there's a not too many Andrews anymore actually, but there are all sorts of different, and the multicultural nature of the makeup of our society, it's not so dissimilar to what you're describing. Like every persons that have come here and our own Indigenous mob, they too have really, really strong ties that bind. So if you look for it, you can see it. That notion of family and that notion of togetherness and that notion of community, it exists. And the Greeks and the Jews aren't too far apart,
No, they're really quite close, actually. It's just like over there.
Yeah, it's really quite interesting.
A couple hours on a boat and you're right there. Like it's I find, so culturally, I understand what you're saying, and I do
But more
get
interestingly, if yours is 2 generations back, and you still identify with it.
That is it, isn't it?
Is it your name, or is it because of what you see in the mirror? Because, this is what also happens with Indigenous people, that there might be an Indigenous strand a couple of generations back, and yet that's how our Indigenous brothers and sisters identify, because it's calling them, it's strong.
Yeah, I don't know if it's epigenetic. It might be. I don't know. There's evidence to suggest that trauma can be passed, down through DNA.
Trauma, absolutely.
Yeah, I certainly both my parents at one point were refugees. I have no doubt that that bit of that came through, which is why I kind of got to be such the jumpy person that I am sometimes.
Do you have Holocaust in your background?
Yeah, my father's. My grandfather lost two sons.
Right.
Two of my uncles. Yeah.
So your dad got that? Do your dad got it out?
It's a long story involved. His father, was essentially his stepbrothers that.
Okay.
And they were older than him. But I have the only person I ever met in my life that looked like my dad. I grew up in Brisbane with a Czech father, who liked stinky cheese and weird meat and black bread and didn't, this
in the
fucking
80s.
That's not football. That's too many goalposts. What's that about? What, nobody spoke like him, talked like him, looked like him. I went back to the Czech Republic with him 30 years to the week after he escaped. And this is in 1998. And I sat across the table from him and his half-brother. And they looked almost, they had the same hands, had the same face. And this is a guy who his other two brothers had both been murdered in the camps. And he was literally involved in the construction of gas chambers when they were liberated. And he lived in Germany. And I remember asking him, it's like, Pavel, why do you live here? And they were translating for me. And he goes, this country took so much from me. This country can look after me. I'm like, fucking hell, man. That's like...
So that's heavy, right?
Unbelievable. So the conversation around what happened in the Holocaust and the effects of it is so humongous and so gigantic, and it cannot be ignored, and the effects of it are still felt everywhere today. For me, though, Libbi, some of the things that are done in using it as a justification, I don't agree with, but that's for me. Though to still see, and I did want to ask you about this. I'm doing this fake news show at the moment, which is the show I'm plugging on your thing. And
while I'm plugging my bold conversation. Yeah, see, we're doing a bold conversation. I don't normally talk about these things.
All right, really?
Publicly. Well, I don't suppose I've really given the opportunity to, although the other week when we were talking about, what was the topic we were talking about? Oh, I'm so offended. It did trigger, which is relevant to this conversation, when I went to Hebrew school, because I went to an Anglican girls' school down here, and on Sundays I went to Hebrew school. So, and I was thrown out of Hebrew school as well. However, what used to happen was that at recess, because it went from 9 till 12 or whatever it did, at recess there was a jail, we used to call it the jail, on the premises around the corner from the synagogue. So it was a big barbed wire fence with a gate. And the older kids would lock the younger kids in the jail. And the game was that you had to escape if you wanted to get yourself an icy pole at recess. And that's intergenerational trauma. So whilst I didn't have the Holocaust in my direct line of family, because my family have been in this country, they came in the first fleet. I'm a Solomon, one of the Solomon families. That's just interesting. My partner, Stuart, his family also came around about the same time, but they came from Ireland and Scotland. So we're both sixth generation Australians, but different backgrounds. So I didn't have the Holocaust directly in my family, but I felt it. And I grew up feeling that I was hated by everybody else because of the Holocaust story. So that was the 70s and the 80s. You inherit this stuff.
This is the thing I did want to talk to you about, is that just we're doing this fake news show that I'm doing, which I would dearly love you to come and be a part of. I'll talk to you about it off air, because I'd want it to be a surprise for the cast. During this fake news show, I'm reading a ton of news, and like Nazis on the streets in Elwood, given it the old my tomato plants grow this high in 2023 in the summertime in broad daylight. Like, actually, what the fuck? Like, how? What? Like, what are your, like, this blows my mind.
I didn't think they were in Elwood. I thought they were in Ballarat. But anyway.
No, they're like, there's this particular boxing gym in Sunshine that is terrifying. I've seen the pictures that came out on some Telegram chat, and there's like maybe 120, 130 guys, and there's like the proper, you know, swastikas on the chest, and, you know, giving it the old Sieg Heils, and they're showing, they stormed a mourning, M-O-U-R, mourning ceremony on January 26, you know, full proper white power, and there was a picture of the same guys on a beach, not Brighton, like whatever's a particularly Jewish area near there. E starts with E, the beach. Yeah, like on the beach in the middle of the day. There was like 30 of them, all like doing a Sieg Heil in the middle of the street. Like, what? How is this? Like, it's not a joke, and it's not some sort of fun club to be a part of. And I wonder, how did we get there where...
Well, I think that Mr. Andrews is banning that stuff.
Really?
Yes, that's my understanding. If I go any further with this conversation, I'll stray into an area that I'm not informed about except for an emotional response. So
Got it.
I'll put that...
No, fair enough, though.
Because I would just have an emotional response. I don't have anything beyond that knowledge that was programmed into me at a very young age that everybody hated you.
God damn.
What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Although, come Easter at my Anglican girls' school, I used to be the one that took the matzah, the bread and the Vegemite to show that, you know, we were human too. So it's interesting how food is the way that that cultures integrate into mainstream society. You know, with the Vegemite on the matzah, I reckon that once we started eating sushi, the Japanese got okay.
Yeah, I think
that's really interesting.
But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Food goes
Vietnamese food,
mate.
You know, it's huge in Melbourne.
The great Australian rapper Briggs talks about that. He goes, mate, do you stay away from my food court? Don't you mess with my flavors?
Don't mess with my flavors.
You know, this is a First Nations
of food.
Is a Yorta man from Shepparton who's like immigration's done a lot of things to Australia, but don't fuck with my fucking food court, mate.
Yeah.
Like, give me that bow. Give me the sanctuary bow. You know?
Give me the sanctuary bow.
Give me the bow. Give me the sanctuary bow. It's all about it.
Interesting.
I guess, you know, you have an emotional response. So I guess, you know, for me, when I see those guys, I'm just sad that the thing that they have found, the edge of the pool they have found to hold on to is that. Yeah, you know,
people, there's a lot of stuff out there that rabbit holes that people can fall into, and they don't feel. I can't psychoanalyze the whole group, but you know, there's particularly amongst my understanding is blue collar, white young men who feel hopeless. But it's a community. Yeah. You know, it's one of those communities.
It's an easy one to exploit because, you know, it literally was a world made for you and policed by people who looked like you, policing laws that were written for people like you by people like you. And that's been changing quite a bit over the last 20, 30 years. And it's not hard to go, it's because of them. I mean, it's been happening since time immemorial.
But it's because of them. You know, like they're all sorts of thems. It's because of the gays, it's because of the blacks, it's because of the Jews, it's because of the, you know, like xenophobia is a very easy crutch to hold on to if you don't want to look at yourself.
And I know your show's called Young People Shit Me. But
People Shit Me.
The vibe that when I'm looking at the young, the young people in my life, which are, you know, mostly G's cohort who I've known since they were about 10 when I showed up in Audrey and George's life, couldn't give two shits what someone's sexuality or background is. No,
it's much more fluid. But they're also more conservative than us too. Like, for instance, on my last show, Bold Conversations About Being Offended, we put on Friendy from Puppetry of the Penis. Anyway, he tied his dick in knots, right? He was very funny.
He's very good at it.
He was very good at it. He came out of retirement.
Oh, could you imagine the warm-up? I haven't done this for a couple of years. Libbi, give me a moment.
I didn't have to imagine. I saw it.
You saw the warm-up?
I saw the warm-up. We all saw the warm-up. It was funny.
What, did you get the wristwatch?
Got the wristwatch.
The hamburger. That's the wristwatch is the classic.
Got everything. Got everything.
The greatest hits. Did they play Hotel California? Did he do the hamburger? I mean, that's really
He did the hamburger. He did the.
Oh my god, that's incredible.
Anyway,
the hamburgers. That's an advanced maneuver.
What was funny was that a couple of mums from school bought tickets and came along, and then went home and explained to their sons in my son's year and daughter's year, that where they had been and what the kid's mother, that is me, had on her show. So at dinner on Friday night, our son said, Johnny's mum said, you did this, you had this on your show, what on earth are you doing? And the group of us that were there were all there in the 90s, so it was funny. It was a funny thing. And we wanted to talk about whether it was still funny, like is it offensive or is it funny? That was the whole point. Well, the kids, anyway, Friendy had left a book called Genital Origami that he wanted me to pass on to another guest as a thank you, lovely to meet you thing. I brought it to the table and the kids were looking at the table and my daughter's saying, I've just seen something that I cannot unsee. I think it was the Eiffel Tower.
Amazing. It's a tricky one to do.
But it's funny, right?
Hilarious.
Then we started questioning our parenting skills. And then it was just interesting that the kids were not delighted that grown-ups got up to these antics. The kids were more offended. They thought it was stupid and they didn't understand why on earth we thought it was funny or why anyone would want to do it. It's interesting. I felt like that our own children were kind of like Safi in Ab Fab, and that we were all Patsy and Adina rolled into one. And we've got raising this generation who are so much more, not serious-minded, but,
I guess that we were pushing against something at the time, which might not still be there culturally. You can open up Instagram and see for all kinds of acceptance everywhere.
And there's porn everywhere, so they get to they can. You see, this is why I can't be Elle McFeast and why I knew I couldn't be Elle McFeast anymore. If I was planning to have a family, I'd read so much about comedians whose kids hated what they did and were embarrassed by what they did and felt smothered, really, by what they did. It was sort of a decision, not just the female economy, but the responsible decision of what I felt like my children would want to back off. So I just did other work. I just used another part of my brain because I didn't want my kids to grow up like that. Now, that being said, they're in their teens now and I've kind of let myself off the leash.
You're free and clear, Libbi.
But
get after it.
They can deal with it now. Like they've had a fairly stable and normal upbringing.
Yeah.
And they haven't watched, I think I've watched one of my things, the Whitlam dismissal, and they weren't interested.
When you're raising your kids, and there's always going to be moments when they first start. Everyone's your friend at school until suddenly people aren't your friend, and then you can have a hard time in the schoolyard, and people can kind of push you around and bully you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Considering what happened to you,
which bit?
Well, which bit? The bit where before there was cancelling, there was like you were the greatest of all cancellers, like because. I'm not. You don't have to record. Like, just for people who weren't there.
You tell the story.
He's dead now. But Chopper was on Elle's show. They were very live, and he started talking about, making jokes about shoving someone back down in a concrete mixer and laughing because he wasn't dying. And now, bear in mind, a person's admitting to a horrific murder on television.
He was reading it from his book. It was a passage from his book. Yeah.
But the person who was destroyed over that was not that person. It was the smart, funny woman who happened to be next to him. Fucking Australia,
Oops.
And that is just so bananas. And I would like to think stuff has changed, but it fucking hasn't. It happened to my friend Yumi. She was on telly next to George Negus. And if you watch the thing back, they were talking about Corporal Ben Robert Smith.
If
you watch the segment back,
with him,
Negus says way worse shit than Yumi did, but Yumi's a smart, funny, half Asian woman. No amount of contrition would make it better. And so I guess when you're talking to your kids about, oh, the world is ending, like this person, someone doesn't want to be my friend anymore. Like, do you have that in your mind going, oh child,
No,
oh child?
no. The only thing I have in my head is study hard and be a plastic surgeon. Don't go into showbiz. Both Stuart and I are from showbiz. I mean, we're both people who have graduated from media.
Yeah.
I've got law as well, so that's cool. Stuart's from a showbiz family, so he understands what it's all about. And we encourage our children. I'm slightly disappointed they haven't gone in any of the school plays and stuff, but COVID kind of got in the way. They play soccer, which is entertainment in a different way.
Yeah, it is.
But it's not, I think it was just the time that we grew up in the 70s and 80s where to be famous was a way out. And it was sort of interpreted as if you were famous, that meant everyone liked you. It meant that you fitted in. It meant that everything would be great because we had a young talent time. I mean, think of all those young talent timers, what they've gone through as they became adults. But at the time it looked like they had everything. But it was so hard for them being famous as kids. There was Bert Newton New Faces. There was that Irene Cara fame, I Want to Live Forever, and there was the TV series fame. Like, all of that stuff was just saying, kids, if you're famous, everything will be all right. That was the programming that me and so many of my ilk.
Oh, I signed up for it.
Yeah.
Everything will be awesome once I get on TV. That was it.
That was it.
Wasn't.
Well, it never is because... No, it never is, because once you've become a commodity, then you're not yourself anyway, are you? Like, and I was in Sydney with a different name. No one knew me. So I didn't really exist until after McFeast. And so in a sense, it was a blessing because I had to, redefine myself. What was I actually here for? It was interesting. Like, not easy.
Yeah.
But I haven't come out of it too badly. Like, I've got a family, I've got a career, I've got kids, I've got friends, and I feel, I've got a couple. Just, you know what I mean? Like, it's interesting when you look at the other side of it.
Yeah.
It was a very destructive thing to happen to my life.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so much him. It was the shattering of the illusion of what I was doing that damaged me. The idea that no, actually, all the stuff that happened at law school, and the getting above the entitled kids and all this kind of stuff, that you've climbed to the top. Actually, no, you actually don't matter. Was it that? No, it was more that the world I thought I built as a famous person was real.
I have well and truly bought into that. Wasn't quite as spectacularly public as yours was, but yes.
So when it wasn't, that was a great dismantling of where I'd chosen to, place my attention and invest my trust and, all of those sorts of things.
Have you seen the Kanye West documentary on Netflix?
No. Is it good?
My God, it's incredible and so tragic. Because he's clearly a fucking genius.
Really?
All right. And in the first 10 minutes, in episode 1, in the first 10 minutes, he basically looks straight down the barrel of the camera. It's his friend filming him basically. And he says, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do this and this many Grammys and this. And it all happens. It all comes true. He's like this, 21-year-old, 22-year-old kid, right? And then the Taylor Swift thing happens. Taylor, I'm going to let you finish. And then, the part of me, I'm just assuming here, but he's quite ill now. He's quite ill, and he's been public about what is going on. And the part of me that has experienced paranoid delusions, I've been through psychosis. It's no fun. Looks at that and go, oh wow, everyone actually was staring at you, and everyone actually was, and your world actually was clawing in around you, and the line between what your brain was inventing and what was actually happening around you might have become too blurry that you lost the edge of the pool there and weren't able to come back. And it's amazing. It's horribly sad, but it's incredible to watch. There's three episodes of it. When all that shit went down with you, it was an extraordinarily high-profile show, and it was the media cycle. There was no social media, so it was all anyone fucking talked about for weeks. How did you get through it? Besides going to ground, what did you hold on to in those, days and weeks following that?
What did I hold on to? Well, it didn't stop overnight. So, like, the trauma of it continued through, but I felt a great responsibility that the show must go on. So, like, we made some more specials and things like that after that. But the truth was that I did lose my mojo, and where I'd previously been unafraid, I now had fear and mistrust. I adored what I did, and I'd always loved it. And it's sort of like the first time you bust your leg on the football field or whatever. So I think what I ended up doing was going overseas. When the year was done, I went somewhere where I could be Libbi. And I went overseas. Now, and that was good, because all I craved was for someone to call me Libbi.
Yeah.
And not Elle. I needed to work out what that was. And then it was just, a very long cycle of getting back on your feet, really. And what I thought was the thing that I craved was authenticity. That's what I craved. Didn't crave the fame. I craved people just talking to me honestly, and so it was just a funny thing. And then of course all of a sudden I started craving wanting to work again, so had to rebuild it, but did it in a different way. Went on the radio.
Yeah.
So that's what it was. It was basically reinventing myself within the same industry.
Yeah.
As a human being rather than as a facade that was out for a joke. And I sort of turned myself inside out, if this makes sense, in that with McFeast it was always joke first, meaning joke. There had to be the joke because that was why you were there.
Yeah.
But obviously I always craved a bit of meaning as well. And then it became the other way around, whereby I could actually be authentic, and if I could use my humour to diffuse a situation or get somewhere further or whatever, humour was something I deployed not to make my guest the punchline, but to further explore the topic. So that's what happened. I turned myself inside out, Osher.
Not everyone's going to host a TV show and have, the right-wing media crush them and then keep crushing them.
You have to remember that it was also only a year after Diana was killed, if you remember.
Yeah.
And also I think Mr. Murdoch's marriage had broken up, and we'd made some jokes about that. And, there was all sorts of stuff that was going on that wasn't nice in media at the time.
Yeah.
So it was just timing.
Well, the fact that you were able to put that back together the way you did, and
I did put it
successfully so, and find a love for it again, and approach this thing from a different place that sounds like it was in alignment, searching for something different but perhaps closer to who you are.
I like connection,
Yeah, is a lovely thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I hope people can hear that and go, well, we're not all going to host TV shows or radio shows or whatever, but to go, well, you can actually rebuild stuff, and you can have something like this happen to you and go, okay, well, how do I put it back together? And that it can be great. But if people don't know that, they can think that's it, the world's over. I'm out. But it's not.
Well, you got to have real people around you. I started with a very small nucleus of real people around me again. People that I'd known from law school and from school, and my family, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
And Stu. And on we went, step by painful step.
If the fears is the fear still there? Like if someone said, "Hey, Libbi, got a late night live show, you want to come do it?"
Well, that's it's interesting because Bold Conversations is moving back into that area whereby, you can take a few risks. And I'm just, you need to know who's holding your legs if you're going to dangle out a window.
That's a good
and
line.
Maybe I wouldn't dangle out a window as far either, because there's no need. There's actually no need. I don't need to get that greater thrill. It's evolution, not revolution, You know that Billy Joel song? I know this really ages me, but I fucking love Billy Joel. Like I went to his concerts and I read.
It was good to a point. He was good to
a point.
Like
I wasn't
good
so
to a point.
Nylon curtain, but I went to his concerts to honour my 16-year-old self, right? And when he sang Vienna, there was a whole heap of women in their 50s going, oh, my God, that's my song. Vienna waits for you. Slow down, you crazy child. You're so ambitious for a juvenile. But if you're so smart, tell me why you're still so afraid, you know? Like, that was really nice for a moment. Then I felt a bit silly. And then I remembered that I was wearing my Sherbet T-shirt because, you know, I'm a Daryl Braithwaite fan. So happy for Daryl Braithwaite and Harry Styles.
Amazing.
Like, Daryl, sometimes I text him because I've chased him since I was 18, which is like 40 years, 39 years I've chased Daryl Braithwaite.
Amazing.
And he said it was a life moment. And I said, you know, isn't this great that you can actually keep having life moments if you get back up? It's not.
I just hope he got paid.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
I just hope he got paid. Like, those tickets are like $300 each. There's 40,000 people there. Daz has given you the moment of the night, Harry.
Oh, geez, I didn't even
throw him a bone, mate.
I did not think of that.
Throw him a bone because he's not getting publishing. He didn't write it, so you know he only gets a performance fee. You know, I think of the business end of things. Like,
I didn't.
What it's like, people will never forget that moment. You know, I just hope Haz have thrown some cash. And the great tragedy of horses is it was Margaret Ehrlich. That if that song came out now, it would be billed as a duet. It would be Daryl Braithwaite featuring Margaret Ehrlich. There's no way that the female voice. This is not Daryl's decision. It would have been a management decision or a record company decision. But Margaret's unfucking believable voice makes that song, and it's a duet. The song's a duet, but it's just a Daryl Braithwaite. Anyway,
it's not a duet. It's not a duet. She just comes in the chorus. She's featured, but it's not equal. But she was still brilliant on it. I'm not disputing that she was brilliant.
Incredible track.
You know, as a lawyer, I would have to look at the percentage of vocal time that took up. But isn't that interesting? I didn't think about whether or not he would have. Have you ever
heard Nothing Compares to You as a duet?
No. Who's done that?
Oh, well, it's Prince. It's Prince's song.
Yeah.
And Prince, it's a duet. Right. It's him and Rosie Gaines. There's a live version of it with him and Rosie Gaines. When you hear it as a duet, when they sing verse to verse for each other, it is just
Is it amazing? I'll have to look it up.
Because they sing, like it's two lovers singing to each other about that. Yeah. I've got goosebumps just thinking about it. It's amazing. Look, I'm thrilled to come and see you. Is there anyone else on the bill? Who else is joining us?
So with you, so on Thursday, on the 16th, that's going to be amazing. That's called My Favourite Failure. And Bold Conversations, My Favourite Failure has got Julia Zamiro, who's a very dear friend of mine, Peter Singer, the philosopher, the international philosopher, the Miss
amazing
Dane Simpson, who's an Indigenous comic didgeridoo artist, and a
classic
stand-up
very,
comic
very funny.
called Hei Huang, who's Chinese, and she did the funniest routine at Upfront, the female thing at the comedy festival. And I think she might have even been on Australia's Got Talent and did incredibly well. But she's a gay Chinese stand-up comic, and she does a really and that's no good in China, you know. So she came to Australia, and she's made a whole new life being yummy Chinese leftovers. It's funny. She's so funny. And then your show is called Young People Shit Me, Old People Shit Me, and it's got you, Michelle Brazier, stand-up comic from Sydney, who'll be also in town, Mary Moody, who is a fan, you'll love her. She's just like, I met her on this Channel 9 show called The Catch Up, and she is in her late 70s. She is an old hippie. She loves saying things like dry as a dead dingo's donger. Her husband she ran away to France basically when she turned 50 and wrote a series of books about, you know, about everything. She's amazing. She's a tour guide and a writer. And then Indigenous brother, his name is Shane, and his nephew, his name is Dylan, Charles, Yorta Men, right, from Shepparton.
Yeah.
And so they're going to talk about young people shit me, old people shit me, and do a duetting didgeridoo act. You're going to love Shane and Dylan.
I love it. I haven't been told anything to prep, but I have an extraordinary example, and I won't tell you now, but I have an extraordinary example about the line between young people and old people, and it involves my new motorcycle.
Oh, I want to know.
So, yeah, it's fucking fascinating.
Well, I'll tell you what happened to me. I was at 7-Eleven, parked at the 7-Eleven to get petrol, moved across to go in and pay, and opened my car door, and the girl in the car next to me said, "Don't ram your door into my car." And I said, I'm not. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. We're just a bit close. Maybe she'd come in to me. And she said, well, whatever, I don't care, just don't bang my car. And I said, I've got a very big bottom, so, I've got to squeeze out trying to make a joke to get through it.
Yeah.
She said, please don't blame your disordered eating condition on me.
Wow.
And I wanted to say, you can get fucked. But she had no qualms about speaking to me like that. She was obviously 20 years younger than me. She was, a well-educated, nice young woman, but didn't have a measure of humour nor respect for someone older than her. And I felt really old because I just wanted to do grievous bodily harm. I moved my car.
But this, Libbi, this is the thing.
She didn't care that she was rude to me.
I don't know enough about it. But I think I was a roadie at the age of 17. So I'm working in nightclubs and stuff before I could even be in them legally. And I saw so much like fucking grievous early 90s pub violence, like proper people's faces getting smashed by bottles, like horrible shit. Going like, that took nothing to start. People didn't even speak to each other. Someone just
looked at someone,
elbow touched in the wrong way. And then, growing up to an all-boys school and being number 2 of 4 brothers, I learned pretty quick that stuff that comes out of my mouth, there's a real risk of violence depending on, and grievous violence, depending on what that stuff is that comes out of my mouth. And maybe, now I'm sounding like an old man because I am, but maybe there is, people who are used to responding in this incendiary way, whether it be on a newspaper comment box or at a Facebook post or whatever, like that's just how I speak to people. That's me, like it, leave this, like me at my worst, you can't have me at my best. It's like, you're someone that's never actually dealt with the consequences of what their voice says to a complete fucking stranger.
Yeah.
You've never been hit for something you've said.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's a great thing to do.
No.
Like, you shouldn't hit someone, but it's happened to me, and it happened to me early enough that later on when I got older, I started going out. I'm like, I'm just going to keep walking. It's not fucking worth it, man.
Yeah, don't blame.
How do you get, what kind of, that's going to be a tricky life. Like, at one point, that person's going to say what she said or something similar to somebody who will have absolutely no problem about going, really? Tire iron. And like,
it is interesting. It's like what Ricky Gervais said, like, how have we bred a whole generation of young people who think that they're entitled to go through life and not be offended? Like,
yeah.
It's the rustle and bustle of human existence. And I'm not talking about bigotry, racism. I'm not talking about the black and white stuff, the obvious rights and wrongs. I'm talking about the stuff that's grey, that the offence is in the hearing, or the action is in the hearing of it.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because we're just not like that. Like, we just had to brush things off. But I'm not saying they have to be like that, but it is an interesting phenomenon. Yeah. And then to be disabled and called a Karen for actually speaking up, I mean, that's just making older women invisible again anyway, isn't it? I mean, there are some of them that are mad at Bunnings, but I'm talking about the grey area of...
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It is... I mean, for me, I
embrace my Karen. I love calling that. My daughter did a Wordle. She curated a Wordle for me. I thought she was so clever. I thought, how are you doing this? And I'm getting to turn around the letters. And when I turned the 5 letters around, the word that she picked for me was Karen.
Amazing.
I said, you wait. You wait.
Give it time, son. Give it time. You will become whatever Karen is by the time you're that age.
You'll want service.
You will want. I just want. Yesterday at breakfast with Audrey. At breakfast with Audrey yesterday, we had someone come and mind Wolfie so she and I could nip off for an hour and a half to go and have some breakfast. And, the waitress walked past our empty water bottle on the table like 3 times. And both she and I are like, I'm trying not to let this ruin the moment. She's like, I've worked hospo. I even watched her look at it and keep walking. That is your job. I do my job so I can come here and pay for the food, but the part that I'm paying for involves that.
Yeah.
That's a part of it.
You liking
it's not just
enough to do.
It's not just the porridge. It's the thing. This water that's empty.
It's the first world complaint, but it's an interesting one.
I look forward to bridging the gap between the older and young, because I think that you mentioned before, no one talks about the Generation X, like I'm somewhere in between. I'm still kind of young enough to be able to dye my hair blonde and ride motorcycles around like I'm 20, but I'm also got a number of hip replacements by now, and I wear hearing aids, and I'm old, so I don't know what to do. I could speak to you all afternoon, but I can't wait to see you in a couple of days. And
it's been an absolute pleasure.
If people want to get to the gig, they just go to the Malt House.
Yeah. The Malt House outdoors. If you want to come and see Bold Conversations or you want to see Osher's gig, just go onto the Malt House website and you can see us.
It's a lovely little venue. It's like there's trellises and vines it's outdoors. It's delightful.
It is. It's beautiful and it feels really intimate. Yeah. So
yeah, and comedy festival's a lovely time of year to be there. Mm-hmm. And day before my birthday. So bring me a present if you like. It'll be nice.
I'm looking forward to seeing you.